Hi, I'm Tim Herlihy. I wrote the film The Wedding Singer, and I co-wrote the book of the new musical version of that film. The idea for the movie The Wedding Singer was by Adam Sandler, who wanted to do a movie about a wedding singer who's left at the altar. The 80s was my idea. I think it was the greatest music this country's ever had. When I first heard they wanted to turn it into a musical, it just seemed like it was so musical to begin with, and it sounded like it would be fun.
The first thing I said was we have to find writers for whom the 80s really meant something. I had been watching Chad and Matt's career, and I was very, very impressed with it. And I asked them, does this resonate for you? Is this something that you can connect to? And they said yes.
I was in high school in the 80s, so a lot of what Robbie's going through I could identify with. It's a story about a guy who can express his emotions through music, and he can't tell the girl that he loves her, but he can write her a song. And in the end, he wins her through music. That, for me, really sort of was the hook for the story.
I think I was in 8th grade in 1985 when this movie took place, and I was born in New Jersey. So this music, this sound, this look is like part of my DNA for when I was growing up, so I can really relate to it.
I think the most challenging thing about writing the musical version of The Wedding Singer is trying to stay true to the spirit of the movie, but we also want to reinterpret it for the stage and also reinterpret it as a musical. So it's been a really careful process of not throwing the baby out with the bathwater,
Right.
making sure we keep what works, but also enhancing it for the musical theater.
Robbie, Holly, and Sammy are basically going behind that curtain. I mean, it's really going to be so low-tech, but so wonderful.
When Margot approached us and said she wanted to use John Rando, we thought that was an amazing idea. We had worked with John Rando before on his first Broadway musical, Urinetown, so we were very familiar with his work.
John Rando actually called me on the phone and said, I've got to do this production because this material really means something very personal to me.
I believed it was a wonderful idea for a musical. It's a funny movie. It's full of music already and full of heart. Those are the key ingredients for making a great musical comedy.
One of the most important things we did casting Robbie Hart was to go outside the traditional pool of actors. To get a guy like Stephen Lynch, who's a comic as well as a musical performer.
And who could break out into those moments of hilarious outrage, but they would be his own. They wouldn't be mimicking Adam Sandler.
I had been touring extensively as a comic and a singer-songwriter, but I always kind of had a soft spot for the theater. And one day they sent me the script for The Wedding Singer, and I read it, and I immediately called them and said I wanted to be a part of it.
You know, in the old days, before you went to Broadway, you usually did the vaudeville circuit as a comic. And I equate Stephen with those kind of performers, guys who just know how to take the stage and sing and be funny.
To find someone who can sing and dance and act and who isn't boring is really difficult. We were so fortunate to find Laura.
Laura's another one who has just great instincts. Her timing, her sense of humor, she's a prodigy.
They didn't want to see me for it. They were like, she's too serious or soprano-y or something. And so when my agents told me that, I was like, oh, really? Well, now I'm going to get it because you want what you can't have. I went in and I had one audition, came back for the callback, and they told me right in the room. That's never happened to me before, and it very rarely ever happens, so that was really nice. I cried like Miss America. Oh my God!
When you see them on stage together, you see this friendship that evolves into a romance. You root for them from the moment you see them together.
The movie had such a great 80s score, and I think that really propelled the story. In turning into a musical, you know, you really have to do the same thing.
One of the things that we felt were really important was that it couldn't be a jukebox musical. It couldn't be songs from the 80s. As much as we loved those songs, it just couldn't be that. You couldn't. I find that it's easier to tell the story if you can actually write songs that tell the story.
Probably the best musicals that I've seen, you never feel that there's a stop of motion in terms of the storytelling.
The instrumentation, the orchestration, is really how you capture the sound of the 80s. 80s. It's really in programmed drum sound, synthesizer patches.
We try and get a cross-section of as much of that 80s musical sound as possible, and there was a lot of it. There was a lot of different genres musically happening at that point in time.
The fact that you can listen to it and say, all right, that's a little Madonna, and that's Springsteen, and that's Blondie, and sounds that you don't really hear very much anymore. That's what I love about the music.
The thing I love about musicals is when you no longer can express yourself through just dialogue, you start to sing or dance. And I think that's what really hooks people in emotionally. And Rob is maybe one of the most talented people I've ever worked with.
His choreography and his sense of musical theater are so inspired and so helpful in terms of telling the story.
It's not like now we stop and start dancing. It's all one thing.
Everybody's going to dance a whole lot.
Sometimes with a new musical, it's hard to find the dance in the show. The Wedding Singer, it just danced naturally. You need to take the energy of today and pepper in there just as a dotted line through some steps of the period. So yes, you will see some Roger Rabbit and Running Man and a little some dolphins.
Knowing that my friends are going to be in the audience and I'm still doing those dances on stage, that is a testament to his ability to make one feel comfortable and able.
I saw the costumes for the first time 2 days ago, and I had pretty high expectations because they've been working on them a long time, and I feel like it's a fertile ground, and they exceeded those expectations.
We tried to put the elements of the 80s into the play without making fun of it. What we found is there's nothing funnier or stranger than reality. Shoulder pads and large hair, it's a very different silhouette than today. It's an inverted V, so it's a really wide shoulder and a really narrow waist.
It gives it such an extra burst of energy and burst of fun. It makes a big, big, big difference.
Through a scrim, there's a little fuselage, and Julia's singing, and then Glenn is actually in front of her. So Glenn's in front of her, and at a certain point he leans back.
The framework for the show is a series of portals. The grid seemed to be a ubiquitous thing, and I thought, well, what if we do the grid, but what if we take it one step further and make it more specific? If people even get the reference that it's that 9-square grid of the Rubik's Cube, then that's great. And we then abstract it to make it into these neon colors, mauves and taupes and raspberries, colors that are very specific to that period.
A lot of it is neon. I think we have a lot of neon. I think a lot of club stuff was neon and dark blues and dark purples. Within those cubes, we can make lights move around and select certain ones architecturally for one scene from the next.
Tonight's dress rehearsal.
And that means everything, all of it. The music, the costumes, the lighting. And it's been almost a 4-week process to get us to here.
We went through several weeks of rehearsal in New York, solidifying the staging and lighting, putting on costumes and wigs for the first time, and that was exciting. Everyone is eager to see how people are going to respond to it. We want to hear laughter and applause, and I'm sure the rest of the cast and crew are excited about actually getting some asses in the seats so we can see what this show is all about.
I'm going to sing you a really romantic song here.
Are you ready?
On the waters of Lake Yichigumi.
This is possibly one of the most energetic casts I've ever been involved with.
Well, fans of the movie, I think, it's a no-brainer. If you love the movie, you are truly going to fall in love with this in a whole new way.
I think that they're going to be surprised at how much heart it has. But they're definitely going to have a good time, and they're going to be psyched that they came.
Let's check it out.
So your first day back wasn't all you anticipated.
I fit the best man. The bride had to be sedated.
This sort of thing happens all the time. When life gives you garbage, you use it to climb. You're out of the dumpster. Was that so hard after all? It was only a dumpster.
From here it looks so small.
Now you're back where you started, on your way to success.